Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today we're going to dive into the world of beauty pageants. I know if you've been following this young lady's post, she left early this morning from Atlanta, GA to come to Indianapolis to not only appear on the show, but to also work on a project that she's going to tell you a little bit about. But before we get started, there were a lot of people that knew that she was coming on to the show tonight. This is a late night episode. And they had all kind of questions. So as we interview her, I'm going to shoot a lot of these questions at her that was forwarded to me about the world and the whole scheme of being a beauty pageant winner. How do you go by doing it? What are the ins? What are the outs? Basically, what's the whole purpose of the whole entire journey? Welcome to the show, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Miss Georgia herself, Sherrie Gearheart.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone out there watching.
Okay, it's almost 10 o'clock at night. Appreciate you showing up.
Appreciate you having me.
We don't ever do late night, but we can call this late night. Late night with Miss Georgia. So before we get started, tell me a little bit about who Sherrie Gearheart is before we get into questions and answers.
I'd love to say that I'm a humanitarian at heart. So What got me into pageantry was just diving into that, if that's okay. What got me into pageantry was I had a very hard upbringing, grew up in extreme poverty, broken home, single mom, grew up around drugs, mental illness. And I remember seeing pageant women, specifically in the Miss America system on TV, that were involved in their community, making a difference in the lives of others. They could sing, they could speak, they could model, they had talent. And I thought, wow, I want to be like that one day. Could that ever be me? Mm-hmm. And when I stepped foot into pageantry, it was really to help keep me on a straight path, to keep my grades good, to get me out into the public, to actually make a difference and to find my purpose. And once I started on that trajectory, I had lost my childhood friend to suicide when he was 19. That was the fourth person I knew. And I remember, then I lost my grandma and I became homeless. I remember crying out to God and praying, why am I here? What is my purpose? And I read this book, Man's Search for Meaning, from Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor. And I remember feeling like God put in my heart that I was supposed to do something for suicide prevention. I'm like, me? Just a girl? Like, who am I to try to go out into the world and do this work? Because I didn't have that self-esteem. Pageantry was slowly building that up. I started when I was 17. At that point, I'm 19, 20. And that's what I did. I started my nonprofit. Pageants opened a lot of doors for me. I won a title. I was able to start talking about suicide prevention, teach people the 3 signs, the 3 intervention steps to saving a life from the QPR Institute. From there, I traveled all around the world. I went to Liberia during the Ebola crisis. When I was Miss United Nations, that's a title I won in Jamaica. I represented USA, won in Jamaica. I went to several countries that year. It opened up many, many doors. I met with diplomats, government officials, spoke live, did many press conferences in different countries. And I was able to educate thousands and thousands and thousands of people here in the United States and abroad. So to me, I'd like to be defined as a humanitarian. To me, pageantry's purpose is getting out into your community and making a difference. Yes, some people probably seek it for the fame or the money or fortune or whatever they think that they're going to get from that. But for me, the true heart of pageantry is the transformation in the lives of young ladies that come from where I come from, very impoverished beginnings, and I don't want to get emotional over that, difficult upbringings that don't have good examples in their lives. Pageantry pushes them and builds that self-esteem in them. So to me, I'd like to be defined as a humanitarian.
Let's go back. You said the way you grew up. Where did you grow up?
So I moved around a lot. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to put down my parental figure, because her and I are best friends today, and I love her, and I'm proud of how far she's come. But I grew up in Chicago. Grew up, my grandmother had me until age 3. Then I went back with my parent, and then I moved around. I never had stability.
You mentioned the word homeless. Mm-hmm. How old were you when you was homeless?
Well, There were several times in my youth that I was homeless, even a point when I was, so sorry, Andre.
Did you know you was homeless?
Not when I was little, I didn't know, because I was staying with my babysitter. I ended up living with her for 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So I did have a home in that sense, but it wasn't my home, my family. So it's a very unique situation. But at 14, yes, I knew we were homeless. I knew we struggled to put food on the table throughout my childhood.
You said we.
My parent and I were homeless.
Your mom and your father?
My mom and I were homeless.
Your mom and I. Where was your dad?
My dad wasn't in my life until I was 6. It's very interesting because my mom's parents were gone. So I really respect her and how far she's come to go through everything she's gone through without her parents ever being there. And I'm also very, very, very blessed that even though my dad was in and out of my life, that his parents were still in my life and still chose to love me, because I don't think you often see that. And I really believe they were married for over 50 years. I really believe if I didn't have that example, it wouldn't have helped veer me on a better path, if that makes sense.
When you mentioned the word that you was homeless when you got a little bit older, and you mentioned...
I was living with my grandmother, and she passed, and I had nowhere to go. I lived house to house to house. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I'd live in this person's basement, someone's car, this person's... I was moving, just so I could go to college and pursue a future.
You have other brothers and sisters, other siblings?
I do, but they're much older, and they have different fathers.
Were you close? We
were not close, no. Because I was different. I was different in my family. I finished high school. I was the first one to finish high school. I was the younger one. They all had children young, which I don't knock. I'm proud of them for having their children and, doing the best that they could do. They're all in great places now. I'm really proud of every single one of them. And, but I was very different than them. I was trying to do something good at that time, whereas they were on a different path.
How difficult was it for you to navigate? You're talking a female, mother raised you, your father in and out of your life. What was some of the struggles that you had to deal with? I mean, to even get through school, not knowing if you got
difficult.
A meal on the table, clothes on your back.
It was so difficult. And also my grandfather passed when I was 16, so then losing him. And there's so much more to this story, Andre. I could go on and fill your whole segment, but everyone has a story. It was, I grew up in a household with physical, emotional, mental abuse. Like I said, I don't want to knock anybody. So that element alone was like living in torture every day. So school was my safe haven. But at school, I felt like I couldn't really fit in because I didn't have the things that I needed to function like a normal everyday kid showing up having the stuff that they need.
Yeah, when kids are going to school with Timberlands and Converse and you
or
trying
food.
to...
Or their notebooks or their school, things that they're supposed to bring,
You mentioned dysfunctionality in the home. How was there dysfunctionality, because I'm trying to visualize at the same time. Where did the dysfunctionality and abuse come from? Was your mom involved with abusive men, or? I
don't want to speak on that because I don't want to tarnish anyone's reputation, because I love and absolutely respect my mother and I'm proud of the woman she is.
Right. So how did the abuse come in? Because you mentioned abuse. Like, how was you exposed to it is what I'm saying.
If I speak on that, I'll be sharing too much information.
Okay.
I've spoken on it before publicly, and it really deeply hurt the person, so I prefer not to.
How did it affect you?
Oh, it was like going through depression. At one point, I was suicidal when I was 13. I didn't really understand what suicide meant. I didn't understand that it was final. So to me, it was like I just wanted my life to end, or I wanted to quickly turn 18 so I could be an adult and be free, right? But your troubles don't just go away when you turn 18, right? But I just needed, it was like living in a prison. It was like living in a torture cell where you don't know when you're going to get hit, screamed at, embarrassed. You couldn't have friends over. You didn't have the freedom to go out. It was rough. It was really rough.
So you never had a safety net?
I never had a safety net except for my grandparents, and I would go there.
Did they see what was going on in your life?
I didn't open up to them until I was 1 year homeless, my first year in high school, without my parental figure. I was living from friend's house to friend's house to friend's house. And finally, I had enough was enough because that parent moved to a different state. And I said, I'm absolutely not going. I refuse to go with you. I've seen how you've treated me all these years. I refuse to do that. So I opened up to my grandparents. They were too old. By the courts, they were deemed too old to adopt me. So the courts interviewed both of my parental figures and deemed both of them unfit when I was age 16. And
how did that make you feel?
And they also told them they wanted me to go to counseling because I wanted counseling, and no one had pursued that for me. It made me feel understood, and heard.
Finally, your voice after silence.
I didn't expect them to be deemed unfit. I just knew they were choosing one parent, and I was just giving honest, raw answers. I didn't even know that thing existed.
What was at least three of the things that you had to disclose that really impacted the whole outcome?
So typically they release you to one parent versus the other. And the last thing I said, and I almost didn't say it, I said, I'm afraid to go with that parent because I know I will be hit. Because the last time I saw her, I think that was like 4 months prior, on my birthday, that parent couldn't keep their hands off of me. And they were shocked because usually the court of law goes on that side. And they said, okay. And they said it was the longest deliberation they'd ever had to do. It took several hours and hours and hours. And they finally chose the other parent, but they deemed both unfit.
You're older now, and congratulations, you're going to have a child. The question is, knowing what you know now and knowing that mental illness and emotional trauma hits everyone, and a lot of our older generation lived it in silence without even probably knowing that it was something that might have been handed down. How do you deal with the forgiveness process of the individuals that all this took place with?
The best thing I could have ever done was break away and start my own life by my own terms, doing my own thing, and that's what pageantry did for me. And I know pageantry can be vain, and I have a love-hate relationship with my industry. But what I love about, and I really do. But
we'll talk about that in a minute. We're not done.
But I love it because of the goodness that can come from it, the path that it helped me get on, where I could publicly speak and make a difference and help guide people, mentor people, and inspire. But forgiveness is very difficult. I am a godly person. I am Christian. I'm not going to say I'm a perfect person. I make a lot of mistakes. Just breaking away, doing my own thing. That was difficult. I did it without support. Eventually, I created family out of my new support system that I built over time. Slowly but surely built a relationship with my parental figures, understanding that they may never be exactly who I wanted them to be or how they'll be, but they had their own trauma. Mm-hmm. They had their own severe trauma. You know, understanding that mental illness can be drug-induced. Mm-hmm. Understanding that mental illness had such a stigma, especially when I started my nonprofit back then. I don't run it now. I did it for a decade. But knowing the stigma was so intense, you know, knowing that, God, if the stigma was that intense when I was 20, now I'm in my 30s, right? Imagine what it was like back then, right? So just a place of understanding, self-reflection, healing myself. I think the more I healed myself, the more I was able to look at them with compassion. But yeah, I try to be a good parent to my children. I really do. You
said children, so this is number what?
4.
4, okay.
Yeah.
Y'all girls?
They're all girls.
Oh, my God.
I got a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and she's about to be 3. We're going to talk
about how much all this costs in the beauty pageant world. Let's go back a little bit before we move forward. I know firsthand the finance that's involved in pageantry. I'm going back to what you said, and I'm taking the questions from the ideals of what the viewers would be saying. How could you even afford to get involved in pageantry if you was going through all of these different things? I know personally, we shared how much it costs to do this.
So here's what I would do. So I worked 2 jobs. One of the jobs I was getting paid $45 an hour at 17, where I was a natural.
Wait a minute, what job would you get paid $45 an hour?
I was just a natural speaker. I had really taken public speaking and presenting in my classes very seriously. So once I won my first pageant, I started pageant coaching girls right away. They were paying me $45 an hour. So then I'd turn around and I would take that money. And I didn't have a car, so I'd have to ask this friend or that boyfriend or whoever to drive me and take me, right? And so I would take that money. I would put that into, obviously, competing. It's expensive. And then I had always had 1 or 2 part-time jobs doing sales, telemarketing, which was very helpful, down the line.
Okay.
But another thing I did is when I started my pageantry magazine, Tiara Magazine, which I wanted to showcase all aspects of pageantry, the curvy African-American pageants, I said curvy, but like all ages, preteen, everybody. Full figured, yes. But okay. I felt like there wasn't a magazine at that time in the industry that showcased everyone. I was like, why isn't everyone being represented? So I started Tiara back then. It was a big deal. So I'd get paid for doing some of this stuff with that. And what I would do is I would barter. I did a lot of bartering. So I would say, hey, I can come in, I can, feature this, this, and this if you give me a discount on this, So I did a lot of that.
So I'm not going to get a check when we're done?
You'll get some advertisement. That's what you'll get. That's my barter. But I did but another thing, I really want to speak on this because this is important. Because I didn't have the finances for all the wardrobe, I would tell them, hey, I'm building up a following here. If you dress me, I'm going to be in New York Fashion Week or I'm going to be in the Philippines doing humanitarian work. I will be exposed on possibly this TV, this outlet, this place. I'll mention your clothing brand. I'll post your brand online. And I would get all of that clothing lent to me. And I would be able to be represented well based on people supporting me.
Your first show. Mm-hmm. What was that like for you?
Fashion show?
Your first beauty pageant, not fashion.
The first one I did ever. That was exhilarating. I was very excited, nervous.
You remember what it was?
I did 2. I did a preliminary one in Northern Illinois. And I remember being mistreated because I always looked older than I was. And I was very mature because of the stuff I had been through. And I remember publicly speaking, they're like, this can't be your first pageant. And all the girls had their moms there curling their hair. I'd have a curl missed in the back because I didn't have my mom. Like, I was new.
Yeah, who did do your stuff when you was there?
I learned myself. I learned all that myself. But part of that reason is because not only did I not have the finances to hire someone, the other reason was I went into the Miss America system where you have to learn that yourself because if you win Miss America, you're on the road 24/7. You're not going to have a makeup artist with you every day,
You won your first show. Then what happened?
I won my first 2 pageants. One was a very small prelim. One was a decent-sized regional pageant. I went into a higher-end level pageant. That year, I just wanted to do as many pageants as I could because I was just on my journey of self-discovery and just all of that. And I went into co-ed at that time in Illinois. It was a really, really big deal. And I made top 10. I didn't know what I was doing. I had hired a coach. It was all wrong. The whole wardrobe was wrong. I think that suit was from the 80s. I mean, but it's okay. I made top 10. And from there, I just continued on. And I remember going to Miss Illinois, which is part of the Miss America. That's the one that's televised. You have to have a talent. You have to be scholastically involved. All of that. A platform. You have to have a cause you care about. And I was really trying to figure out, what do I care about? What do I want to represent? Because I knew that's the path I wanted to go. I was just still figuring out. It was my self-discovery phase, right? So I remember going to the state and seeing Ashley Hatfield compete, and she blew me away. She was 24 years old. She had done so much advocacy work. She had traveled the state, and then she won Miss Illinois. And I said, I'm going to be on this stage, and I'm going to compete for this one day. Well, my first year I did it, I kept losing the preliminaries because they kept thinking I was 24, not 19. And they kept being really harsh on me, but that was good. It forced me. I traveled. I took all the funds I could get in, all the support, all the sponsors. I would go into business, ask them to sponsor me. They give me $25, $50, whatever. I traveled wherever I could possibly travel with whatever friend was willing to take me. Go to Kansas. I go to Wisconsin. I went to Indiana. I worked with all the communication coaches that I could to better myself so I could go after my dream of eventually public speaking, community service, all of that. And then I won my preliminary, went to state, tore the ligament in my ankle a week before competition. Didn't win state because of it, or who knows if it was meant to be or not. And then I was like, okay, cool, I'll step back. I went to somewhere else in Illinois, won that title, went to South Carolina, won that national title. The following year, went to Texas, won that title. Boom, 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 until I was Miss United Nations. That was my most life-changing title.
Why was that your most life-changing title?
Because the name of the title could open doors.
Right.
It's such a powerful name. And my charity at that point, I think, was 5 years old, and I had such a massive groundwork I'd created. And I had already gone to Philippines twice. I'd already gone to different places, like all over. But I remember being on the airplane, and I remember saying to God, I really want to go to Africa. And I thought, that's not going to happen. Because it's like, to me, that was just a dream that would have to happen many years later. When I got off the plane, I saw a picture of a little child. And the child was, the picture was so heartbreaking. The child had depression in its eyes. And I thought, wherever that child is, suicide has to be a problem. So I reached out to the person who posted it on Facebook. They said, oh, yeah, suicide is a problem in my country. I'm going to connect you to this person. I ended up going to these galas in Texas. Didn't have the money, but I was so active. And my director believed in me so much, I helped sponsor it. I helped find other sponsors. And I went to Texas, met with these different organizations, ended up going to Liberia and during the tail end of the Ebola crisis, and then doing a bunch of suicide prevention advocacy work live on the news, government officials and universities and schools. I mean, that title helped me just open many doors. People want to listen when you have a title. They're very interested. Sure, there's going to be people who are like, it's a beauty pageant. But then there's other people who are like, well, what is that? And then they want to know, and that opens up the dialogue. So it helped me so much with my suicide prevention work.
How many titles do you have?
Right now I have one title.
And what's that?
Mrs. Georgia, Woman of Achievement.
You just got that recently.
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What does that come with? What does that title mean to you, and what does it come with?
So that title is very platform-based. So you really have to stand by a cause that you believe in. So I've chosen to represent this year, obviously, about suicide prevention. That'll always be part of what I do. Mentorship, which is the ladies that you sat down with from my own pageant system. I love pouring into them, teaching them public speaking and all of that. And then the last part I want to advocate for is infantile spasms, because my child is a miracle baby. She was having over 100 seizures a day, and I want to educate other parents on the signs and what to do for that. So that title means a lot to me. It's about being a woman that is well-rounded, cares about her community, family-oriented if they have a family, and just very giving, and it's all about the heart.
Let's talk about your supporting cast. The guy you met, the archaeologist. How did that come about?
So I think I was...
Because when you told me, I was like, he's a what?
So I think it was my second time going to Ireland as Miss United Nations that year. And I almost didn't book my flight. I booked it 1 week prior because finances were so tight. And I got every last dollar, and I had to get a little creative. Booked my flight, and I have a lucky number, and I chose that lucky number to sit on that seat. It was an aisle seat because I got to get up and down. And I got on the flight to Ireland. I'm going to go there to help teens. Ireland had the highest rate of teen suicide. And this man is sitting in my seat. Now, normally I wouldn't say anything, but I know that I chose this seat. And so I said something to him, and he stood up, and he was like over 6 feet tall. And I went, oh, no, I'm so sorry. You can have the seat. You can, because he was going to need the room. And he said, no, it's okay. So he sat down, and for 7.5 hours straight, the entire flight to Ireland, that's how I met my new best friend and my now husband. So he was going for archaeology work. I was going for suicide prevention work. And that's how we met. So here we are. I think it's been 8 or 9 years.
How does he feel about what you do?
So he met me as Miss United Nations. I had the crown in my bag. I told him what it meant. The crown is very unique. It had many different colors. And I told him what it was. He had something to say, his political things he had to say about it. I let him talk.
What did he say?
We're not going to go into all of that. But he had his something to say. And I just let him say what he had to say. And I said, okay, but for me, this is about doing charity work, right? So we talked about that. And he had this really cool understanding of the entertainment industry. So he's like, okay, cool. He's like, I can get behind that. That's nice. My sister's a singer. She's incredible. She travels. So it was really cool. He had this really neat understanding. And but he really didn't get it. So So later, after we became Facebook friends, he went on and was like, a beauty queen.
He said, let me go on and put a ring on it.
He's like, is this for real?
Beautiful story. I interview some of your proteges. Very inspirational young ladies, to say the least. My hat's off to you for the things that I see you do. A lot of people have different ideas about the beauty pageant things, but I see firsthand what you do. I see what my daughter has done. What are some of the negative things that you hear about people, and how can you kill the myths?
The negative things about pageantry do exist. They are real, 100%.
What are some of them?
Some of the negativity would be that pageants tend to be very political and rigged, or only the people with money tend to win. At the end. Is
that true?
It can be. It absolutely can be. Sure. Okay. Absolutely. It's like any business out there, right? There's over 100,000 different pageants. You have to find the system that aligns with your values, right? Not try to change yourself to fit into that culture.
How many organizations of pageantries are there?
I mean, they say over 100,000 currently in the U.S. alone.
So how do you know, with that many organizations, how do you know where to take your kid to? What's going to give me the bigger bang for my buck? I don't want to be scammed.
No, you don't want to be scammed. That's number one. But at the end of the day, you have to meet people within the organization. You have to hear their stories, their firsthand accounts, how it was ran, how, what they got out of it. And really, you have to ask yourself, what are you looking to get out of it? Because some people really are looking for the glitz and the glam and the massive prize list, and they don't want to make appearances. They don't want to do community service. There are pageants for that. So you have to read through the prize list or read through the mission statement. Just if you Google pageants, a million come up. Our system is Miss Royalty International. We're about promoting inclusivity, diversity, as well as our Model Citizen Leadership Academy, which is what the girls are participating in now. So it's about, like I said many times, getting out into the community, making a difference, finding your purpose, developing that. So you just have to figure it out.
How long has your organization been up and running, and why did you decide what made you decide to do your own organization? And the other part of that question, there's a lot of questions, but the other part of that question is, what did you not want to bring in your organization that you was getting from the other organization, what you was hearing from other people about the negatives?
Okay, so that's a loaded question. I love it. So I ran my nonprofit
for 10 years. That's called a double-barrel shotgun.
It's great. So if I forget a part, let me know. Started my nonprofit, ran it for a decade. You already know why. Lost my childhood friend to suicide. Made a lot of changes in a lot of people's lives, and it also changed mine. Fast forward, I was giving birth to my second child. I needed to slow down because my nonprofit grew so big. I needed to pass that torch. Okay, so which was very, very difficult for me to do. I used to do hundreds and hundreds of suicide interventions every year, but it was just time, right? And so I started Model Icon because I wanted to continue producing fashion shows with a purpose. And I started that in 2019, where I bring in high-end runway coaching because I worked really hard to get into the actual legitimate Mercedes-Benz New York Fashion Week, LA Fashion Week, all these high-end things. I did a world supermodel tour in China. I was the only American selected to go to that. Everyone else was from Europe. So I started Model Icon to bring that to people that are petite, curvy, every ethnicity, and that's been amazing. I love seeing that transformation. So that's that. In 2020, when COVID hit, I was approached to acquire the Miss Royalty International pageant. I had competed, I think a year prior, and I won their America title, their first runner-up America title. I'd just given birth to my baby. I had been wheelchair bound. I was still recovering, and I was like, I'm going to push myself. 2 weeks out, I signed up. I did it. I won the America title. I prayed a lot about it because where my funds come from is from event planning. I produce fashion shows, right, or workshops or, academy trainings, all of that. And so during COVID, I couldn't produce any of that because nothing was open in Chicago or really elsewhere at that time. So I thought, what do I have to lose, right? But do I really want to be a pageant director? I had been pushed to be a pageant director for a long time. I'd had title holders under my nonprofit, but it wasn't a pageant. They were ambassadors for suicide prevention. And like I said, I have a love-hate relationship for my industry. So
Wait a minute. What do you mean a love-hate?
Because of the negativity the industry has, I try to carve out the positivity. And there are plenty. I am not the only fish in the sea. There are plenty of wonderful pageant systems out there that do the same, that each has its own culture and subset of rules and all of that. So I, after a lot of praying and thinking about it, I acquired the Miss Royalty International pageant, and I did a complete 180 overhaul of its mission and what it stood for and how it was presented, and here we are today. And that was in 2020. I held the first one in 2021. Held the second one in 2023 because my daughter was born and had those issues. She almost passed 3 times in that first year of life. She's a miracle baby. I thank God every day that she's alive and well. So I held one in Atlanta last year, and then we just did it in New York City.
What do you like best? The pageantry, or the model icon?
Both.
No. This is late night. You only get one.
So I mix the two, and the way I mix the two is I invite my title holders into Model Icon to speak. So Model Icon is a perfect platform for them to speak during the show. I love Model Icon because I get to see people developing their skill set and going for their dreams. The reason I love the pageant, and I'm so in love with the pageant.
So to answer my question.
No, you're not going to make me choose. You're making me choose.
Which one you like the most? You like the modeling or you like the pageant? Okay, one of them has to be your
why
oh my God.
The pageantry is my number one. It's because of the transformation. The ladies that you met, all of the ladies that won, they could be anything once they have public speaking.
Okay.
They can be anything. They could win, if they want to be an attorney, they could win cases. They could be the next president, not the next, but, eventual president of the United States. They could go on to change the world. So because of the training we provide through the pageantry and all of these opportunities that have been opened up to them in just the last month of them winning, I would have to choose pageantry.
Okay. Was that hard?
It was hard because I love my Model Icon, and Model Icon owns the pageant.
Okay. Before we wrap up, let me do it like this before we wrap up. What makes your company the one that individuals should choose? You mentioned over 100, but you're here. You flew here for a reason. You could have went anywhere to amplify your voice, and thank you for coming here to do this. Why should individuals bring their future beauty pageant queens, models to you?
Number one, the training that we provide. We pour everything into the individual standing in front of us. It's truly about equality. It's truly about celebrating the individual and seeing them to their fullest potential. So when they stay with us, we're opening as many doors as we can. We're providing real, legitimate training and very professional productions.
Name some of the people that you work with that's going on to have pretty illustrious careers.
I would say, one of them, her name is Abigail. I don't want to say her last name because she's still a minor.
Okay.
She's doing major modeling in New York and abroad in Europe. But I have several cases like her that are doing major things overseas.
Let's talk about the beautiful 3 young ladies that appeared on this show. Tell me about them. What makes them 3 ladies so special?
Their heart. Just who they are, what they have to present to the world.
Now, who are they again? Because
Daisy Eli, she's our Miss Royalty International. Kiana Linton, she's our lifetime Miss Royalty International teen. And Yavi White, our Miss Royalty International teen, the new winner. Kiana's the lifetime.
What does lifetime mean?
Lifetime means that she did such an extraordinary job during her first year of service as the winner that we have chosen to have her represent our organization for a lifetime. So she is our teen representative, at least through her teenhood, So she's lifetime for the teenage years, and she gets to wear that crown and sash and continue representing the organization and going out and seeking opportunity on our behalf.
What individuals would make a good candidate for your program?
So the unique thing about us is we work with all experience levels. And so you can have absolutely zero pageantry experience, zero modeling experience, and we'll help build you up from the ground up. You could have low self-esteem. You could have severe trauma that you've gone through and you're looking for a safe place to heal and to grow and to find yourself. Or you could be more established. You could already have a legitimate modeling background, but you've hit a lull. You need some new photos. You need, the Model Icon show really elevates people. It connects them to so many people within the industry. With the pageantry, you could have a very clear set path of what your platform is and already have done a lot of work for that. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, we're really good at connecting you with many individuals out there that can get you emceeing, singing at their events, publicly speaking, sharing about your advocacy work, getting into the news media. Our girls, I've gotten them in 10 media outlets in just the past 4 weeks alone, and I continue to grow that number, obviously, as the year progresses.
Let's talk about money. A lot of us may not, a lot of people that are watching this have young girls that probably was in the same situation that you, and they want an outlet, they want an opportunity. How much does this cost? And if they wanted to get involved in something like this, is there financial assistance available for them?
Yes, there is. Mm-hmm.
Explain that a little bit.
So we do have scholarships that are available. So if there is a young lady that comes to us and cannot afford the full entry fee, sometimes different members within our board or different outside sponsors from different businesses that we've aligned ourselves with will sponsor the funding for them to come and compete. So there is sponsorship available. It isn't always available for the full amount, but it can certainly reduce fees down. Right now, our fees have been discounted down to $595, which is quite a lot. So we do take payment plans $100 a month if an individual needs to do so. And that grants them the opportunity to go to internationals, compete in the 3 areas of competition at the Miss Royalty International pageant. It's interview, fashion wear, and evening gown. And I do, for those watching, I do throw in an onstage question to keep it real, because I want them to understand that if you win, you're going to be put on the spot by people like you.
Okay, that's pretty smart. That's pretty smart.
Yes, so I throw that in there as a surprise.
What keeps you going? What keeps that beast mindset going? Because you're all over the place. I mean, congratulations once again on the Miss Georgia.
Mrs. Georgia.
Mrs.
Woman
Georgia.
of Achievement. Thank you.
Yeah. But what keeps you going? You got another one on the way. All girls. I know he's probably thinking, man, he got to go find a bone or something over in Egypt to pay for all these things that's about to happen with these little girls. I'm gonna tell you a quick story. You can share this with him too. I went. You're from Chicago, so you seen the what's that baby doll store? American Girl doll. Mm-hmm. Never will forget it. My daughter asked for American Girl doll. We're in Chicago. We leave the museum and we're walking and we go into that store. And I'm bitching like, man, I don't want to spend $100 on no damn. And I mean, they're coming at me with all things. We got to buy the comb. Mm-hmm. You got to take her upstairs and get her. Socks. And I'm like, what the hell? So by the time I paid for it, I see this guy coming in with 3 girls.
Oh yeah.
And you can see a tear. And I looked at him. I said, boy, I'm glad I'm not you. So I could just imagine, he's gonna have to find some type of archaeological find in Egypt now, because now he's got 4 in you. What keeps you going with that beast mindset?
Oh my goodness, faith in God.
That's a pretty strong combination.
Faith in God. Faith in God. Yeah.
How can the viewers reach out to you?
You can text me at 815-914-8602. You can look up Model Icon Inc. on social media, as well as the Miss Royalty International pageant. If you want to check out the pageant online, you could go to our website, mripageant.com. But yeah, I more than welcome all of you to text or call me, especially text message is great.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come on to the show. Please come back and keep us posted on all the great things you're doing, all the new modeling shows that's about to come out. Make sure you guys subscribe, follow her, support the young individual. And there's also older women, too, that they're doing it. Share a little bit about that before we close out.
So pageantry, depending on the pageant you compete in, has ages for everybody. So my pageant, Miss Royalty International, we have ages 4 all the way to 65 plus. We have an age division for everyone.
What about men? You got modeling for men,
There are plenty of pageants. US United is a great one in Georgia that I would more than happy put your name in the hat.
Don't even do that.
Marsha, if you're watching, reach out to Andre.
So there are men in
there are. Ours hasn't had it. We've had a lot of requests we've considered. But right now we're just strictly focused on ladies and children.
I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.